Hey, what's going on everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another Pioneer deck tech. So today we're going to be talking about $50 mono white humans. I'm really excited to bring this list to you. As always, before we hop into the video, let me know in the comment section below after the video, what do you like about the list? Do you like it? Do you hate it? What would you change? And as always, if there's any suggestions that you have, just let me know in the comment section below, and it might be featured in an upcoming video. So, $50 Mono White Humans. So, for those who don't know, Mono White Humans is a very good deck in Pioneer. It's actually a top tier deck. But we're going to be playing a $50 version of that deck. Spoiler alert, there's not a lot of restrictions we have to make. Yes, there are some restrictions, but overall, even the cards that we did cut, we were able to fill it in with something that's still very, very powerful. So, we're going to hop right into it here. We're going to look at our 1-drops. We're playing 4 Recruitment Officer. It's a 2/1 for a white human soldier. We can tap 3 and a white to look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card with mana value 3 or less from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Just a fantastic card in general. Obviously it's a 2/1 for 1. It's a Savannah Lions. That's a human. Late game, we need more action. We have a lot of extra mana. We can pay 3 and a white and look at the top 4 cards. Maybe dig for another human to put into play. So, fantastic card. Then we're playing 4 Dauntless Bodyguard. It's a 2/1 for 1 white human knight. As it enters the battlefield, choose another creature you control. Then we can sacrifice Dauntless Bodyguard. The chosen creature gains indestructible until end of turn. So, early game, it's a 2/1 for 1 that attacks really well. Late game, if we play after some of our bigger threats or our better threats, we can at least name them and be able to protect that creature. So, Dauntless Bodyguard, fantastic card. Then we're playing 1 Hopeful Initiate. It's a 1/2 for 1 human warlock with training. Whenever this creature attacks with another creature with greater power, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Then we can tap 2 and a white, remove 2 1/1 counters from among creatures you control, destroy target artifact or enchantment. So, Hopeful Initiate, fantastic card in general to be playing in a deck like this. Normally it is a 4 of in the non-budget human decks, but since we're on a $50 restriction, I wanted 9 1-drops and we were able to fit 1 Hopeful Initiate in the deck. So, fantastic card. Obviously, if you're looking to upgrade the deck, I would highly consider going to 4 Hopeful Initiate. So we're going to hop into our 2-drops here. We're playing 4 Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. It's a 2/1 for 1 and a white, legendary creature, human soldier with first strike. Non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. Thalia, staple in human decks. Card is really, really, really cheap, so if you don't already have your copies, I would highly suggest picking them up because Thalia is fantastic, especially in a deck like this. So, fantastic human, there's a reason we're playing 4 of them. Then we're going to play Thalia's Lieutenant. If you have Thalia, you got to have Thalia's Lieutenant. It's a 1/1 for 1 and a white human soldier. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each other human you control. Whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Thalia's Lieutenant. Obviously, fantastic creature. It pumps all the rest of our creatures. And it has the Champion of the Parish text where whenever you play another human, it gets a +1/+1 counter on Thalia's Lieutenant. So, really, really great card to play in the deck, obviously. Then we're playing 2 Tomic Distinguished Advocates. It's a 2/3 for white, legendary creature, human advisor. 2/3 with flying, lands on the battlefield and land cards and graveyards can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. Your opponents can't play land cards from graveyards. So, Tomic is really, really good for 2 reasons. A couple of reasons. 1, it's a human. 2, a 2/3 flyer for 2 is really, really good stats, and it's a human, so it takes advantage of all of the Thalia's Lieutenants and other human synergies we have in the deck. Other reason being, the lands on the battlefield and land cards in graveyard can't be the target of spells or abilities can be very, very, very relevant. For cards, for instance, like in the Mono Green Devotion list, when they're untapping their Nykthos, they can't untap it, obviously, because, they can untap it, but they can't use Kiora, for instance, to untap it. They can't put Wolf Willow Havens on their lands, which can be very, very relevant. And the Lotus Combo deck, they can't sit there and just tap and untap all their lands because they can't be targeted to spells or abilities. So, Tomic, just kind of secretly a good card in the humans deck. Usually you see at least 1 or 2 copies, and in this case we are playing 2 copies. So, we're going to hop into our other 2-drops here, and our 3-drop, one of our 3-drops we play. I would say this is more the Lord section. We're playing 4 Luminarch Aspirant. It's a 1/1 for 1 and a white human cleric. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Luminarch Aspirant, fantastic card. I mean, obviously, it buffs all of our creatures. Well, one creature every combat. Those 1/1 counters, they really stack up over time. Definitely for those who haven't really played the deck or played against it, Luminarch Aspirant may seem very underwhelming for the most part, but once you play with this card, you realize how powerful Luminarch Aspirant is. So, very, very powerful card in the deck. Then we're playing 4 Coppercoat Vanguard, new edition from, what's the name of that set? Aftermath. It's from March of the Machine Aftermath. It's a 2/2 for 1 and a white human soldier. Each other human you control gets +1/+0 and has Ward 1. Ward 1 reads whenever it becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter unless that player pays 1. So, Coppercoat Vanguard is a very powerful lord. 2-mana lords are the new standard these days, and Coppercoat Vanguard offers very, very good stats. So, Coppercoat Vanguard is a 4 of in this deck for a reason. Then we're playing 3 Benalish Marshal. A little bit of a throwback from original Dominaria. It's a 3/3 for white, human knight. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. Very basic card, but still a very, very powerful one. This is our pretty much our budget version of Adeline. We weren't able to fit Adeline in the list, unfortunately. Spoiler alert. I really wanted to, but I decided to play the Benalish Marshals just because, in terms of restrictions, and I'll talk about those in a minute, I decided that I didn't want to restrict our lands as much, so I decided to not play the Adeline. Was it a mistake? I don't think so, because Benalish Marshal is still a very powerful 3-drop, and it, gets our creatures even bigger, and we get in even more damage. So Benalish Marshal, absolutely fantastic card. So we're going to hop into our last slide here. We're playing 4 Banisher Priest. It's a 2/2 for 1 white, human cleric. When it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until Banisher Priest leaves the battlefield. So Banisher Priest is our budget version of Brutal Cathar. Brutal Cathar essentially is the exact same card. The only difference being, Brutal Cathar is obviously 1 white and 2, which doesn't really matter too much because we're a monocolor deck. But obviously it can transform with the day-night mechanic, and then when it becomes day again, it transforms, and then it can exile another creature. But overall, really with Banisher Priest, 9 times out of 10, it's going to do the exact same thing as Brutal Cathar, and that's where I decided to trim a little bit more of the budget overall was on the Brutal Cathars and played the Banisher Priest. Also, kind of a cool note, if you're a new player and you're still kind of learning the game overall, and you don't want to worry about having to keep track of day and night, just play Banisher Priest in general too. It exiles the creature, it does the same thing as Brutal Cathar most of the time. Just swap into Banisher Priest, buy him for $0.25 instead of the Brutal Cathars. I think a playset's going to fetch you about $15, $16, I think somewhere in that range. But anyways, Banisher Priest is our budget version of Brutal Cathar. Then we're playing 2 Brave the Elements, 1 white instant. Choose a color. White creatures you control gain protection from the chosen color until end of turn. Obviously, fantastic card. If we're in a board stall, we can break through it. If we're up against removal, we can protect our creatures from it. Overall, Brave the Elements, staple card. We're playing 2 copies of it, but it's still really, really, really good. Then, rounding out our main board, we're playing 4 Ossification. It's 1 and a white enchantment. Enchant basic land you control. When Ossification enters the battlefield, exile target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls until Ossification leaves the battlefield. So, it's really, really good. Obviously, we put it on one of our basic lands. Pretty hard to get removed for the most part, especially in game 1. But being able to exile a creature or a planeswalker opponent controls, very powerful effect for 2 mana. That combined with Banisher Priest makes sure that we're able to take care of our opponent's creatures very easily overall, be able to answer them, keep them off the board, so that way we can just keep attacking. So, all we have left for the main board is the lands here. So we are also playing 2 Cave of the Frost Dragon. Just kind of a staple land overall. Obviously, we can turn we can turn the land into a creature for 5 mana, 3/4 dragon. Very solid card overall. Then we're playing 4 Sheffet Dunes. Just a really good land to be playing in general. Obviously, we do have to pay life to activate for white mana, but we could tap 2 white, tap it to sacrifice a desert and give creatures we control +1/+1. Just really good overall. Obviously, sometimes giving that little anthem is very, very relevant overall. Little bit of a spoiler alert, we're also playing another non-basic land in here, but we are not playing the Mutavaults. That was one of the bigger cuts that we had to make for the deck overall. But whatever, it's fine. Mutavault is a very good card, so if you do decide to pick up this deck and upgrade it, I highly suggest getting the Mutavaults. Then we're playing one Aganjo, obviously a staple channel land, for if you're playing decks in Pioneer, you should be playing the channel lands overall. And Aganjo obviously is free to be playing in the deck. Then we're playing 13 basic planes. Obviously, we're a budget deck and ossification. We need to be able to put the ossifications on our basics that we control. And obviously, we always play the spicy land of the day. I don't remember what theme this one is exactly. I think it's the soldier theme from Jumpstart. Let me know in the comment section below. I just looked up Human Planes MTG online, and this came up, and I was like, wow, that looks cool. It's a whole bunch of humans. Like, it kind of reminds me of the Boros Legion. It's not the Boros Legion, I know that for certain, but overall it's just a really, really cool card in general, specific art. So I feel like I'm just an advocate for Jumpstart basic lands at this point. So what I'm telling you is just go right now, just go buy all of them. Just go buy all of the Jumpstart lands. I'm just kidding, whatever. Anyways, so that's our entire main board. We're gonna hop into the sideboard here. We're playing we only have 2 slides because we're just that easy, we're just that lucky. So we're playing 3 Tormod's Crypt, 0 mana artifact. We can tap and sacrifice Tormod's Crypt, exile all cards from target player's graveyard. Obviously, fantastic card to be playing in the sideboard, whether or not you're budget or non-budget. We would be playing Rest in Peace, but obviously restrictions, so we're playing Tormod's Crypt. Then we're playing 2 Damping Spheres, 2 mana artifact. If a land is tapped for 2 or more mana, it produces a colorless instead of any other type and amount. Each spell a player casts costs 1 more to cast. For each other spell that players cast this turn, the TLDR is it shuts down Nykthos, it shuts down Lotus Field, and it shuts down like Arclight Phoenix a little bit. It's harder for them to come back from the graveyard. Obviously, any deck that plays a lot of spells in the same turn, obviously we bring that in against them as well. Then we're playing 3 Portable Holes, 1 white artifact. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls with mana value 2 or less until Portable Hole leaves the battlefield. Just fantastic. Obviously, it takes care of like Land of Realms, takes care of like tokens, takes care of Thing in the Ice. Really any permanent that our opponent has that's 2 or less, obviously it takes care of. So great card in general. Then we're playing 3 Containment Priest, 1 and a white, 2/2 with Flash. It's a human cleric. If a non-token creature would enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast, exile it instead. Just obviously, Containment Priest is really, really good against decks that try and like cheat creatures into play. Like Storm the Festival, for instance, it can stop like the Cavaliers and the Trolls coming in. We can bring it in against decks that like Neoform or the Indomitable Creativity, where they're trying to cheat in all their creatures. We can flash in the Containment Priest and stop those creatures from entering. Containment Priest, very underrated card in the format. Then we're playing 2 Redain, God of the Worthy. 2 and a white for a 2/3 legendary creature god with flying and vigilance. Snowlands your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped. Non-creature spells your opponent's cast with CMC 4 or greater cost 2 more to cast. Honestly, it's a really, really good card. It makes our opponents like board wipes, expensive planeswalkers cost 2 more to cast. It just does a lot for the most part. The flip side, not that we are going to be casting it a lot for the flip side. It is Valkmira Protector Shields, 3 and a white legendary artifact. If a source an opponent controls would deal damage to you or a permanent you control, prevent 1 of that damage. Whenever you or another permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or an ability opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless its controller pays 1. So sometimes we do cast it on the flip side, but the main side is the Redain, making our opponent's non-creature spells more expensive. Then, rounding out our sideboard, we are playing 2 Destroy Evil. 1 and a white instant. Destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater, or destroy target enchantment. Obviously, a lot of good enchantments that we can blow up in the format, but the main reason we are playing it is to destroy creatures with toughness 4 or greater. Cavalier of Thorns, Shieldred, our opponent who's awesome playing Glorybringer, Questing Beast, whatever. Toughness 4 or greater, we take care of it with Destroy Evil. So, that is the entire deck overall. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. Let me know in the comment section below. What do you think about the list? Do you like it? Do you hate it? What would you change? Are you going to build this list yourself? Just let me know in the comment section below. I'd like to thank everybody for joining me, and I'm going to catch you in the next one.